before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling.
Hey everybody, I'm Morty.
And I'm Brian.
And on today's episode of Connecting Through Wrestling, we have the Wildcat, Chris Harris. Chris, how's it going?
It's going great, guys. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, taking time out of your day to talk to us about wrestling and your career. I do appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Hopefully we get some interesting things going on.
Awesome. The first question I ask everybody is probably a question you've been asked a million times, and it's just to get the ball rolling. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Been asked that many times. And I always go back to I was a fan. I was a fan growing up. I watched it on Saturday mornings. It was wrestling. I think cartoons were the big thing, but I look forward to wrestling every Saturday morning, and I was tuned in and just became a fan. I guess that was more of the year '86, and really started getting into the WWE and the storylines, and then started checking out NWA. So I was a fan of both. I never had it in my area, so I wasn't much of a territory guy. But I was glued to the TV, and it really caught me for. I started watching the Saturday night's main event, and that led me into WrestleMania 3, which was a big one for a lot of us. And I have to say, I'm one of those that saw that Savage Steamboat match, and I was hooked. And that's when I started thinking. I was like, I want to do this. I just, it wasn't necessarily the the wrestling, although that was a fantastic wrestling match, but the reaction they were getting from the people, that's what really hooked me. And I thought I had the ability to do something like that, and I was addicted to that fan reaction, man. So that's what really got me into it, and I started doing it, doing the backyard thing, although ours wasn't the hardcore that it came to know to be, the backyard stuff. But yeah, I was into the storylines and things like that, and that continued into college. And I went a couple years into college, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, but I couldn't get wrestling out of my mind, and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I better do it now. And so I left college after a couple years and pursued a wrestling school, and took off from there.
That's awesome. Like, I totally agree with that whole mental aspect of being hooked on the eliciting the crowd's reaction. Being able to control the crowd. That is a feeling. As a manager in wrestling, I don't get to do as much in the ring, but I do get to elicit those crowd reactions, and I know it really is what you get drawn to. It is the biggest part of the addiction in wrestling.
That's the addiction, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something, when I earlier on when I got into wrestling, which would have been like 2012, 2011, 2012, it was all the a lot of the guys would kind of hide the fact that they were fans because they didn't want to be considered a mark.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I always thought, why the hell are you doing this? If you're not a fan of it, what made you want to get into it?
We all are.
Right? Exactly. And so for to hear you say, I was a fan and I liked the way the crowd reacted, that at its bare bones is what it means to be a wrestler. I mean, you can go out there and do whatever moves you want, and if you get no crowd reaction, it means nothing.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. So
that's a lot of what we're missing today. I mean, people can go out and do all the moves they want, but until you get that emotional attachment to the fans, they're not going to care. So a crazy move can get a pop for a couple seconds, but you get that emotional attachment, and they feel what you're doing, that can carry on for months.
Yes. So you said you pursued a wrestling school. What steps did you take?
Well, back then, no social media, so I was looking in in the wrestling magazines because, like I said, I was a fan, so
Hmm.
I looked at all those and I started, I guess, just researching some things that were in my area and pursued, which I guess were considered indies at the time. But I pursued, um, I guess I was just calling numbers maybe,
Hmm.
and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I wound up getting attached to a training center, which was like 3.5 hours away from me. It was close to 4 hours away, but it was very reputable. Back then, one of the bigger known training centers was the Monster Factory. I
Hmm.
believe it was like Northeast,
Hmm.
and there were three guys running that, and one of the three was Charlie Fulton. And so when they finally split, the three of them split and kind of carry on their own. Charlie Fulton had a school in Marion, Ohio, and I'm from the Cincinnati area. So I that's what I did, man. I pursued that, and it meant that much to me to make that kind of drive. And it's funny because nowadays, so many. I mean, I'm involved in training a lot of the kids, and it's right in their backyard.
Hmm.
But mine was so far away. But that's how serious I was about it. I had that dedication, and I couldn't do it. I could only do it once a week. Now, a lot of the training centers, they, two, three, sometimes more times a week. Um, I could only make that drive once a week, but I was carrying a full time job, and I would make that drive. I'd get my ass beat for about 3 hours, and have to make that drive back that same night and be back up for work the next morning. So, but that's just how much I wanted it, man. I mean, I
Hmm.
was I was willing to put in the work and put in the time. And I sometimes I do wind up stressing that to some of the kids. It's like, you don't know how good you got it right now,
Hmm.
to be able to drive down the street and be in your training center and back in your bed that night. So yeah, man, that's I searched it out, and I still say that to this day. When because there's so many schools out there now, but how many are good at what they do? How many are
Oh yeah.
have the reputation?
Yeah.
So you really need to look into who's running it and what they've done in the business, and if they have any kind of a name and any kind of experience, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of them that'll train you, and they'll
Hmm.
take your money, but whether or not you get the good quality training is another story. So, um, that's that mine. Obviously had a very good reputation. Um, Charlie Fulton had a lot of years in the business, and he had worked for WWE. Um, so I had great training coming out of that, and I like to say that they trained me physically very well.
Hmm.
As far as the holds and counter holds, reversals, just learning the moves, I did very well. Um, but I don't feel like I was trained much on psychology. And back in the Cincinnati area, once I started doing events, started doing shows, I hooked up with a school that was in the area, and it was being charged by Roger Ruffin, who he was a '80s '90s WWE referee,
Hmm.
and so I got attached to that training center, and he is really who molded me, and that's when I started looking a lot into the psychology of a match, and so that's what I became aware of. It's not just the moves that you do; it's when and where and how you do them. So I do credit a lot of my training to Roger Ruffin as well, because he's really what helped make me into the wrestler I became.
Awesome. Um, it- that is a point that a lot of people have made. Um, that you got to make sure you have a reputable school. You
Hmm.
need to know who trained your trainer. You need to know, things like that. And a lot, I'm sure Brian, Brian can, attest to this. There are wrestling schools are a dime a dozen right now.
Hmm.
And there's a few. We're from Indiana, so we're actually really close to you. Um, and
Everybody's a promoter.
every, every everybody is a promoter in Indiana. It seems like,
And a vet.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Um, I was lucky to get with a good school. Talking about you learned the moves. I was taught how to bump. I was taught how to do all that, but also, you know, the psychology part that you learned from Roger. Um, I was lucky enough to have a school that had all that. Um, Made me think of things that I've never thought of before. Like, um, if your finishing move is a like big a giant lariat, something like a clothesline from hell. Why would you why would you do any other stand up clotheslines? If that's your finishing move, why would you not always, go for that? So basically cut out, the other like Irish whip going in for a clothesline in your matches because it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah,
And
there's certainly a different way to do it. Yeah,
right,
I would even suggest not having anybody duck your clotheslines.
right,
If that's your finisher,
Mm-hmm.
don't even miss it during the match.
yeah,
Hundred
yeah,
percent.
absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely a very important thing that I think a lot of schools do miss is the psychology. They think, well, we taught you the moves, taught you how to do spots, taught you, Memphis, internationally, you got all this down, go try it out. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, for sure, psychology is a very important thing. So so you learned how to the psychology in the Cincinnati area with Roger Ruffin. What was the name of that company?
NWF, Northern Wrestling Federation,
Okay, all right.
still going today.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome.
So how long did
So
you
go ahead.
work the indies up there before you got on TNA's radar?
I did indies. Let's see, I trained in '94 and started doing my indies then, and I did indies all the way up until, well, I mean, I did it for a long time, but '99 was my big year because I branched out into the Nashville area and started doing some indies there, but that got me on WCW's radar, and I started doing some events, some shows for WCW, and I was part of the security for some of the like the Nitro and Thunders, but their Saturday night show, their WCW Worldwide show, I was doing a lot of matches for that, and I actually signed a contract in 2000, so I was actually under WCW contract for about 6 months before the unthinkable would happen, and that was the one of the big two goes out of business. So um, yeah, that was kind of the rug jerked out from underneath me, man. So that was 2000, and then so from that time I was back to the Indies, and
Mm-hmm.
2001 was a little bit of a struggle because I was still trying to make it as a pro wrestler, and then 2002, that's when TNA came around, and I had already had my connections. And TNA obviously was based out of Nashville anyway, so I already had a name in the area. But yeah, I'd known Jeff Jarrett from WCW, so that kind of helped my connection there. So that's when, yeah, thank God TNA was there for me.
Mm-hmm. I how was the early days of TNA when it was just like starting out? You know, it was a growing company. How was it then? You know, getting your big break there and growing with that company.
Well, I mean, it was great. I mean, the early days were, I mean, it was all learning for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
It was a growing business, so there was going to be a lot of mistakes, and then of course we did struggle then. We every day, every week, we heard, we were being told that hey, TNA is going to go out of business, it's not going to make it, and we heard that from the first days, into the first year, and we just kept striving. It was one of those things where if everybody did their part,
Mm-hmm.
then the company as a whole would survive. So of course, the inner workings I wasn't part of, so I didn't really know a lot of the detailed struggles that they were going through. But um, we were all just there to you know put our part in. If I knew wrestling, so when Storm and I were put together, we just went out there and tried to put on the best match we could, and so we became a tag team and became one of the best tag teams around and having the best matches. So that's all I was focused on, was just doing my part. And as long as the company was going to be around, we wanted to. We were that was our heart was in the company.
100%. I agree. I know those early years I watched it in America's Most Wanted, and that was one of my favorite times to watch TNA was when you guys were on. I always thoroughly enjoyed watching that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, there were some good times, man. I mean, I look back at I still look back on it. There's an Impact channel that I have, so I get to see. Every once in a while I'll turn it on, and it'll be a match that we had from that first year. So there was really some exciting times. It's really cool to look back on that.
Oh yeah, I there's just so like I feel like you guys were part of why TNA became so successful back then because you guys were all young and hungry and you wanted it and it really showed that you were growing with that company and putting everything out there to do
It was
that.
definitely like a wrestling renaissance, is kind of how I would put it. It was you you brought something that wasn't WWE, and it was just as good, if not better. And you know, you were it was more wrestling than sports entertainment for me. It was, you know, I mean, America's Most Wanted were just hard nosed, just ass kickers, and that was something that a lot of wrestling at the time was missing. So I remember being a huge fan and just let be honest, marking out for everything that America's Most Wanted did, just because it was grade A tag team wrestling. And tag team wrestling, I've always liked tag wrestling over singles wrestling or any type of wrestling, just because of the I feel like you can almost elicit more emotion from a tag match. Blind tags, false tags, whatever you want to, all that. I feel like whenever the heels are beating the living snot out of the baby face. That baby face is reaching for his partner, but he just can't get there. That that it tugs at you like, come on, get So and I you guys were absolute experts at doing tag team wrestling.
What worked for us is a lot of what you said is because 2002, if you look back at the tag team division, um, when Storm and I, we when we figured out, okay, we're going to be a tag team, so we wanted to be the best tag team out there. We just really applied things that we knew from tag team wrestling, and of course, we were fans of the '80s and the early '90s, tag team wrestling, because it was much different in the year 2002. And what we did is we referred back to what we had learned and what we were taught from tag team wrestling, and those were, we watched the Arn and Tully and the Midnights and Rock and Roll Express and Heart Foundation Bulldogs. We came up on those, so those that's really what we did. And if you look at, I mean, the only we were the alternative, but the main stage was WWE. And if you look at their tag teams around that time, it was basically, they weren't pushing a whole lot of tag team
Mhm.
wrestling. Your tag teams were two singles guys thrown together, and they would be together for maybe a few months, 6 months. In that time, they'd have a title run, and then within 6 months, they're split up and feuding with each other. So there's just not a whole lot of thought going into it. And what we did is, the old school tag team wrestling, man, and it still works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, we stayed together for a long time. There was ideas of splitting us up in the early days, and we actually fought for it to stay together because there was just that's just what was going on. So, you know we I think we brought emotion back to the tag team wrestling. We brought back, the old school style. And
Mhm.
I think that's really what got people's attention. They started really getting into us, and we became so popular because there wasn't a whole lot to compare to that at that time. We people were getting back into tag team wrestling, tag team matches, and that was what really was exciting to us because there there wasn't a whole lot on the other channel going on in that style. So Yeah, that's really what worked for us, man, and the fans really took to it.
Right. It truly is a um, what's the word I'm looking for? It works. The
Hmm.
old school way works. Thinking about Arn Tully and um, the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express and all that. Thinking about them, look at FTR now. Why is FTR such a big wrestling tag team? Because they're old school. They do the old school tactics. They do the old school matches, and people eat it up.
Yeah,
And
go figure. I mean, they're doing it now and it's working. And
yeah,
now they're like they're the most popular tag team out there right now, and you enjoy their matches.
right. Because it's wrestling. The formula. That's what I was looking for. The word the formula. The
Yeah,
formula doesn't ever change. And the formula will always work for the crowd, but so many people get lost in the flippy moves and all that that they lose the formula. The formula will always work
Hmm.
when it
yep.
comes to professional wrestling. And you guys were masters of the formula.
That's what worked for us, man, and it carried us for a long time.
I couldn't agree more. So when it became time to do your singles run, how did you feel about that branching out on your own?
Um, yeah, I felt good about it. I kind of tested myself throughout the years, even though we were a tag team. Every once in a while to have a little singles go, and
Hmm.
it kind of it gave me it let me know I had the confidence that I could still go. So when it was time, we had been together, man, I don't know, maybe 5 years, and I think it was a good time. I mean, I think we still could have gone longer.
Hmm.
Maybe we should have, but yeah, I was ready for it. So I was ready to branch out, and I think Storm was too. And ready to tackle the. I mean, that's the thing. We were in the same company, but going into singles, you got a whole new division you can
Yep.
go into, and so there were so many opportunities and so many openings that we were looking forward to.
Oh yeah. So what is Chris Harris up to today?
Well, not a lot of bumps.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fortunate for that. I don't do a whole lot in ring. I did a little bit for Impact last year. There was a really good storyline we did there. Storm and I came back in at Slammiversary and
Hmm.
uh, did a little something for a couple months, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that, and Impact will always have a place in my heart. But yeah, I really enjoy the convention thing. That's really big now. So a lot of times, sometimes by myself, but a lot of the events, Storm and I will be together, and yeah, it's just really nice to be able to meet the fans and sign autographs, take pictures, and not get hit. I like that a lot better. So yeah, I really do a lot of that. I still do some events once in a while. But then I do spend a lot of my time on the local scene with the Northern Wrestling Federation. I work side by side with Roger Ruffin, and at the events, I really have a hands-on approach to that and help the guys kind of work their matches and trying to teach any kind of experience and wisdom I have. Of course, I'm big on the psychology, so they hear me build that into their head a lot. Um, but we train a couple days a week where I'm there, whether I'm helping them with their training, and same thing. We'll go through some things, and I'll tell them what they did right, what they did wrong, and kind of build on it. And then we have events every weekend. So if I'm not out of town, we're doing something with that, and we just always talk about how the NWF's been around for forever, and it's still going strong. So I really enjoy that. I thought coming out of the ring, it was it was really hard. I mean, it's something we all have to accept, and it is really hard. We were talking about it earlier. That having the fans react, the emotion that you get from them. Um, that's almost like a drug. It's addicting, and knowing that you don't have that anymore, can really wear on you. But in helping a lot of the younger talent, it's like a whole new appreciation I got for it because I can help them put their matches together and help them, place this move, where it goes in the match, just all that stuff. And when I help them put it together, and I get to watch and see the reaction from the people, even though I'm not in there doing it myself, it just gives me such a great feeling to see them perform and see it working, and to see the look on their faces when they come back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that worked!" And
Mm-hmm.
did you? I ask them, "Did you not just did you see that?" I ask them, "Did you feel it? Did you feel what happened out there?" And so yeah, I got a whole new yeah, just a whole new appreciation for it, and I love doing that, and it's kind of given me a new part in the business to be able to do that for the younger generation.
Fantastic. I know you touched on a little bit earlier on making sure you go to a reputable trainer, but if you had any advice for a person that's getting into the world of wrestling, what would it be?
That would definitely be on my list, high on my list. You got to go to a training school. You have to learn the basics. Whether you think, I mean, even if you're 300 pounds and 6'4", you may not be doing a whole lot of arm drags, but you still need to go in there and learn how to do it, because you
Mm-hmm.
just never know. I mean, and you have to be able to. It's always good. I know a lot of the guys, they go over their matches step by step nowadays, but I really teach them to um, just be ready in case you need to call it on the fly. And there's certain things that will change the course of a match, and you have to be ready for it and not freeze up. So there's just so much that you learn with the training. So I certainly encourage, if they're looking to do that, to go to a training school, definitely reputable. Look at who's come out of that, and who the trainer is, and what they've done in the business. And you just really have to learn with that. But I also try to stress, and it's not that I try to talk them out of it, but I try to push on them just how much this takes out of your life. I mean, you have to be so focused, so dedicated. um, I actually think it's a lot more lenient now than it used to be. But I mean, there was time, I mean, when you're on the road that much, you're not going to see your family. You're not going to be around for holidays and birthdays and things like that. I mean, it just takes a lot of dedication to it. I think nowadays it's a lot more open to spending time with your family, and obviously the injuries. There were times when you're injured, but you still have to work because you have to get paid. And now they really encourage you to take the time off and heal the injury. Certainly, things are different with concussions, and um, but yeah, I mean, it's really a way of life that you have to really set yourself in, and that's what I try to tell the guys now, guys and girls, that I mean, it takes total dedication. It's the training. You have to show up at training. You have to be there. I'm big on getting in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I know, you can turn on your TV and see guys that obviously don't put the time in the gym, but yet they still have a spot. But I just encourage. I mean, I feel like if you want to be a professional wrestler, you need to look the part. You need to look like
Mm-hmm.
an athlete. You want to be a professional athlete, you need to look the part. So I really encourage them to get in shape. And yeah, I mean, it's just like I said. I mean, the main thing is just the dedication. It's going to take a lot, and you really have to be serious about it and decide if you want it or not. But yeah, that usually then I tell them to get as much experience as you can. Once you're ready for matches, I say get out there and get as much experience as you can. And not everything is going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
A bad experience is still an experience. You'll learn what not to do. So you will have bad matches, but you learn from it. So um, yeah, just that's just a little bit of what I try to put out there. But um, I love to see people hungry. So when they come walking in the door, now that I've been doing that part of it for several years now, I'm able to look back at the first time they came in the door, how scared or they may have been, and now I see them main eventing some of the events. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just a really cool feeling.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'd like to say thank you for everything that you've done for wrestling and continue to do for wrestling. You look great. You were a big part of my childhood, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the support, and thanks for watching all those years.
Hey everybody, it's Morty.
It's Brian.
And thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.